So, hi, everybody. It's Dr. A here, and I am sitting here with my friend and colleague, Deb Lomma, who is a very interesting person and a new friend of mine that I met a few weeks ago. And we're just going to chat a little bit about, what I do, what she does, and it's all good. So, as you guys know, like I am a person who works in gut health, in functional medicine. I'm all about putting good, healthy products into our bodies and, maintaining a good balance between what we eat and our lifestyle choices. So I think, Deb and I have talked a lot about the kinds of things that are the ritualistic behaviors that we do that's around food. And sometimes it's a little bit, it's challenging when you are either logging your food or worried about your nutritional habits, to pay attention to those rituals that we really do need, that we share with other people in our lives, that we share with our friends, with our families, especially with holidays coming up. We all want to be able to participate in those rituals. So that's something that I think is very important. So what do you think about rituals, Deb?
Well, as far as what I do, I am a marketer of clean crafted wine. Now, clean crafted wine, many people don't know what that really is because it is a trademarked word that we came up with. And we came up with it because there was nothing out there that had the standards that were high enough for us to feel good about our products. So we created our own, and that's clean crafted, which means it's beyond organic. So I come from a place where I have colitis, and I had been eating clean for many years, many years. I did have a love of wine and did have a love of coffee. Those were two ritualistic things that I think many of us love or have in our life on a daily basis. Well, when I found out what's lurking in my coffee and in my wine, I became worried that, okay, I may be eating clean, but I'm drinking dirty. And this is when I changed my whole, way of drinking to match the way I was eating. And I had been a consumer or a buyer, a purchaser of the wines and coffee. At the time, just the wine. The coffee is new to us. For about 2 years before I became a consultant. And then I just became so passionate about it. And my quote is, friends don't let friends drink dirty. So I spread the word. And that's what I feel like I do, is I educate people on what is in their coffee and their wine. Unfortunately, pesticides, chemicals, added sugars, GMOs, in our coffee, mold and mycotoxins are very, very prevalent. And organic doesn't test for all of them. Organic is only organic because it's grown without pesticides, but other things can go on during the making of the wine or the making of the coffee that we don't put up with. So we don't allow. Also, organic does not need to test for runoff from another farm. We test for that. So we do independent lab testing for what I call yuckiness. And we do people testing for deliciousness. And I have found that it's just a lifestyle change for me, really. And I can't really, I drink other wines and I know I shouldn't. And if I do, I know I'm going to suffer the consequences. Our wines are very low in sulfites as well. Because there's no added sugar, it's just the residual sugar from the grape. Our wines are less calories. Our typical 5-ounce glass of wine is approximately 100 calories, where mass-produced wine can be up to 300 calories. Our sulfites are never above 100 parts per million, typically in the 50-60 range. Mass-produced wines are typically 350 parts per million. Our wines are gluten-free. We don't use any of the synthetic additives that may contain gluten that mass-produced wines use. We don't use wheat paste in our barrels, so our wines are gluten-free. Our wines are also vegan, and a lot of people look at me cross-eyed when I say, well, aren't all wines vegan? Unfortunately not, and it's pretty gross. I'm not vegan. I do like to eat more plant-based than meat-based, but I am not vegan, and it still creeps me out. During the fining stage of the wine, that's when they are taking out the little pieces of stem and skin and so forth. Mass-produced wines will put in animal byproducts, fish byproducts, or eggs to absorb those little pieces. They take it out, but it's been in there. And when a vegan finds that out, oh boy, they switch over real quickly. So instead of using animal byproducts, we either use bentonite clay, or we don't fine and we filter. Or sometimes we don't filter. It depends on the wine.
So I think this is very interesting what you're saying about what the going back to the concept of eating clean but drinking dirty in the coffee and in the wine. You know, a lot of us don't think of that because, you know, we think, oh, I'm doing everything. Like, I don't eat chips. I don't drink soda. I don't, take anything out of a plastic bag. But then you don't think about what you're drinking.
Well, unfortunately, there's no ingredient label on most wines. And that's another thing we do is we just have started with our new vintages, putting ingredient labels on our wine. So people just assume there's grapes in wine. That's it. And grapes are high in antioxidants. Grapes are good for you. But they don't know what else is lurking. And unfortunately, the FDA allows hundreds of pesticides and hundreds of chemicals during the making of the wine. It's just okay.
That is crazy. Yes. And are you telling me also that there's gluten in wine?
In some, yes. In some, if they're using anything in the additive part in the making of the wine, that many of the processing aids do include gluten. And then in the barrels, many use wheat paste to seal the barrels. So yeah. So it's amazing that wine has been in existence for a gazillion years.
Forever.
And we really don't know what's in it.
It's what happens when mass production gets involved.
Right.
I mean, you saw it with, if you look at things like, I don't know, pick anything. You could just pick anything. Anything that takes off. If it's, salty, fatty, or sweet, it's like, and it's mass produced, don't touch it. Yeah. If I slice potatoes really thin and I put them in the oven to make potato chips, those are potato chips that have minimal processing, right? But if I open a bag of, whatever is on the shelf, it's a totally different idea. I think the ingredient on the end of the list is potatoes. The rest of it, everything comes before, right?
It's very, very true. Yep. And coffee, unfortunately, coffee is the most chemically treated crop in the world. And not everybody, but as well as I do that.
I'm drinking coffee here.
I just had my coffee, but it was clean crafted.
It's fascinating. Yes, and I had the clean crafted coffee the other night at your house, and it was delicious.
And not only is it delicious and clean crafted, it is low in acidity, which for me, having colitis is very important because I love coffee, but highly acidic coffee does wrench
Yeah,
me.
it upsets you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
tell you, I am very protective about my coffee because my coffee it has to be good coffee. It has to taste good. It has to be good coffee because I don't put anything in it.
Right.
I used to be, cream and sugar like the whole way. So you could have put any old stuff in the cup and I would have drunk it. And then I would say about a dozen years ago, I stopped all of that. And that's it. I'm just drinking black coffee. And it made a difference, but it also made me very picky about my coffee.
Yeah. Oh, of
So
course, because you're really
yeah,
tasting the coffee. I
yeah,
used to laugh at my father because I used to say, put some coffee in that creamer. You know?
yeah, that was
Yeah.
me. That
Yeah.
was me. It
Yeah.
had to have sugar. It had to have cream.
Yeah.
It had to have
Yeah.
everything. And, it's just when you take all that junk out of it, what's left behind has to be good quality, and the
Right.
acidity does make a difference, that's
Sure.
for sure.
Sure.
And but it just has to be good quality. And what was it you were saying the other night about the mold?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God, this is
so
terrible.
yeah. So they do not have to test for mold, which we test for mold. And the
Why
reason
is there mold to begin with? Can you tell
because
me?
coffee is grown in hot, humid places and
Yes,
mostly in impoverished places where they don't
yes.
have the ability to remove it or avoid it. Our coffee comes from both Guatemala and Honduras, but we grow high up in the mountains and we shade grow. So that to begin with gives us a better chance of no mold being apparent. If we do find the mold, it gets scrapped. We cannot
So
use.
So this doesn't come out with like roasting the beans. The mold is still there. It's just
Yeah,
roasted mold.
it's yeah, exactly. It's still there. It's still there. It's
It's
in
it
the bag.
clings it
And that
clings
can
to
be,
it.
and so, so like people always say, oh, it's the sulfites in the wine that give me the headache. Oh, it's, and it's not just the sulfites. It's not just the coffee. It's all the other stuff. I mean, there's chemicals, coloring. Coloring is a big one in mass-produced wines. They use coloring because they want one vintage to look the same as the next. And wine is grown outdoors. The weather is different in 2019 and 2020. Two different
Right.
climates, two different terroirs. The
Right.
ground is different. So it's going to be slightly different in color every year.
Right.
But mass-produced wines figure their clientele wants to see the same thing every year.
Well,
So
it's
they
like
make this,
McDonald's.
yeah,
It's like McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's in New York and you go to McDonald's
right,
in Arizona, they're going to be the exact same McDonald's.
exactly,
Right,
exactly,
same thing, because it's all the same processing, right? But
right.
what, so is this true of American wines? What about European wines?
Yep. No, European wines too have salt. I mean, it depends on the size of the vineyard. I mean, a small family-owned vineyard, which all our vineyards are small family-owned vineyards, is probably not adding the sulfites. They are probably having a small batch, which we are small batch, that doesn't hang around a long time, so they don't have to add the sulfites for more preservatives.
Right.
But mass-produced wines in Europe do have the sulfites too. I mean, I believe that we are less lenient here in the US than they are in Europe, but it's there too. It's there too.
Right. Right. It's, I just think that these kinds of things, we just don't think about it. It's like we just think of wine as a category. And when we talk about, wine, we mostly are talking about alcohol all the time. It's like alcohol, you should not have, X amount of drinks per week or X amount of glasses of wine, and certainly, post pandemic, everybody was drinking wine, and now we're all, we've all gained weight because we've all drunk too much wine, and we got to, worry about this. But what I'm getting from you, it's not just the wine, it's what's in the wine. It's the wine and all the other stuff.
Yes, it's
right.
You don't necessarily have to stop drinking wine, just change the wine you're drinking, and change the coffee you're drinking. And it's a small change for deliciousness too. You're not skimping on deliciousness, which is very key. That is one of our pillars. If it's not good, it's not worth anything. So you can have no pesticides and chemicals and so forth, but if it doesn't taste good, what good is it?
Exactly.
So we have our head sommelier is fabulous. He was, sommelier of the year. I forget what year it was, but fairly recently, for Food and Wine magazine. And he's our tester and taster, and nothing gets by him, and it has to be passed by him. Our farmers are fabulous. They love our high standards, and they love that we can market them in the way we can, because they have no real big outlet to market themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a beautiful relationship with our growers. I mean, even though they know that if we find something that maybe came from runoff and that we won't buy it, they'll have to sell it to someone else. They also know that if they have a bad crop, we'll stick by them. So it's a very symbiotic relationship where they keep their prices at a reasonable price, because our wine should be very expensive because of all the hand care that it has to go through. And the fact that we can't use pesticides and chemicals makes it so much harder to do our wines. But because the farmers and us have a great relationship, we're able to keep the prices, at a good level.
So, I mean, from a health or a gut perspective, now you're someone that has suffered with gut health issues, and does this wine bother you at all when you drink it?
No, I'm not allowed to say, it's not going to bother you, but I can say,
but does it bother you? That's the question. Does it bother you?
Experience, not at all. And I know the difference when I'm at someone's home and I'm being respectful and I'll drink their wine. And I know how I feel from that. And there's a huge difference. And there's a huge difference in the taste. I mean, before I tell someone that our wine is clean crafted, they'll take a sip and say, this tastes clean.
Yeah, it does. I've tasted it. It does taste, it does taste very clean. It's not, well, I mean, there's difference. I mean, if you have an old wine, or you're drinking, there's wines certainly that I've had even recently that have depot, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about depot.
Our wines are meant to drink. There's a few wines, like you got to try my bookbinder, Cabernet Sauvignon.
I did. It was very good.
That wine can be cellared for 10 or more years, and that will grow and expand with time. But our wines are meant to drink. Most of our wines, though, can be cellared for 3 to 5 years. But why would you want to? Just drink them.
I think that's true. Definitely, that's true. Yeah. Right. So, all right. So that's great. And there's red, there's white, I had your rosé, which was really good. There's a sparkling white, which is delicious.
Not just one sparkling white. You just tasted one sparkling white.
Really? Yes.
We have many, and we have many rosés, and
brilliant.
Nice, beautiful blends as well, which we like doing blends because we don't use sugar. So if we have a grape we want to make a little sweeter, we'll use another grape to blend with it.
Yes, that's really wonderful. And the coffee, though, is also very, very tasty. Yep. I think it's absolutely great. And it's a win-win, I think. I mean, really, I think really the take-home message here is just to provoke some thought. into when you to expand your mindfulness to not only what you're eating, but also what you're drinking.
Right.
I think calling attention to that is extremely important for people, in these days of, going to, chain coffee places and going to, chain wine place, drinking mass-produced wine. It's like, do you really know what you're drinking? Right. It's like we were already calling attention to what we're eating and saying, listen, the processing of food, when you have a food that has more ingredients that you cannot pronounce than what you can pronounce, you shouldn't be eating it. The same goes for what you're drinking.
Exactly.
The same exact thing. And that is really something that not a lot of people think about. You think wine comes through the door, it's okay, it's grapes,
Yep. No, we need to
not necessarily.
Right. We need to eat clean and drink clean. Many
Absolutely.
people are drinking dirty. Yeah.
Okay. Eat clean, don't drink dirty, drink clean.
Right. There we go.
That's awesome. Can you tell me though, can you please mention the name of the company?
Yes. It's Scout and Cellar. And I am a Scout and Cellar consultant. If you'd like to look at the website, go to scoutandcellar.com/Deb, DEB, Lomma, LOMMA.
That's perfect. And that's how people can access where you are, where your store is, your storefront.
Sure. And if any of your watchers want my email or phone number, please do give it to them. I'd love to talk to them and help them with an order or order for them.
That's great. Okay, so we can put it in the comments of the video when we post it. And so thank you very, very much. So remember, guys, yep, this is great. So if you want to go to my website, it's intentionalselfct.com, or you can go to my Facebook page, Intentional Self, or my Instagram is Dr. Terry Alasio. And that will be done. That concludes our little chit chat today with my friend Deb Lomma. Thank you so much, Deb, for coming. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
you there?
Take care.
Okay, take care.